Mm. Hi, and good morning and good day to you all. My name is Pamela Gopal from the African Union Development Agency, NEPAD. I represent a program called the Policy Bridge Tank within the Economic Analysis and Foresight Unit. A warm welcome to you to this 2025 third edition of a set of joint series with the Africa Futures Initiative and the African Policy Bridge Tank Erudite Series Seminar. Today, our title, as you know, is The Africa at Work, Redefining Employment for a Changing Continent. Africa stands at a pivotal moment with the world's youngest population in a changing continent. The world's rapidly growing labor force, the continent faces both a challenge and an opportunity with this labor force. The AUDA NEPAD is committed to addressing this challenge through youth empowerment, our micro, small, and medium enterprise development, and strategic foresight. Today's seminar will explore how digitization as well as AI and youth-orientated policies can shift Africa's labor trajectories from informal survivalism to productivity-led growth. We will also examine the risks of premature deindustrialization and jobless growth and how policy innovation can help us navigate these challenges. We are privileged to have today an expert panel joining us, and we will introduce them as we go along. But following a presentation of the AFI report, then we will move into a moderated panel discussion, and I'll pose questions to each of our distinguished speakers today, drawing from the thematic insights shared in the AFI report. At this stage, I am pleased to introduce Dr. Blessing Chipanda from the African Futures and Innovation Program, the Institute for Security Studies. Dr. Chipanda will present findings from their latest scenarios analysis, which compares Africa's current employment trajectory with a more ambitious policy-driven alternative. His insights will highlight how improvements in manufacturing, agriculture, governance, and education can reshape Africa's employment future and unlock the continent's demographic dividend. Blessing, I hand over to you specifically on addressing topics of which sectors hold more promise for absorbing Africa's youth labor force, as well as what governance reforms are most critical to unlocking employment potential in the continent. Over to you, Blessing.
Thank you, Pamela, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is with me online. Let me try to share my screen. Pamela, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, I can listen. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. As Pamela mentioned, I'm Blessing Chipanda. I'm a senior researcher from the African Future Innovation Program at ISS, where we model and forecast the long-term future of Africa, each African country, using an economic model known as International Futures, in short, IFS, hosted and developed by the University of Denver in the US. Right now, I'm showing you our website, which is an open source, where we have reports for each and every African country, income group, regions, and we have themes on demographic and health, education, manufacturing, after, leapfrogging financial flows, large infrastructure, and governance. So in these themes, we have 8 sectoral scenarios, demographic and health, is combined, and then large infrastructure and leapfrogging are combined. Then here we have the impact of these 8 sectoral scenarios on climate change, energy, gender, and we also have what we call combined scenario, where we combine all these 8 sectoral scenario, then look at the impact. And today I'll be showing you the impact of works and jobs, the impact of these 8 sectoral scenarios on works and jobs. Our time horizon is 2043, which is the end of the 10-year implementation plan of African Union Agenda 2063. If you want to know more about our modeling, about if you go to our technical section, you'll be able to read a lot about our modeling platform, how we do our scenarios, about ifs, conceptualization of ifs, the assumptions of ifs, everything is there. So since I have 15 minutes and probably have already exhausted 2 minutes, I will give a quick presentation. So I will start with key takeaway, since we don't have plenty of time. So these are some of the takeaways that I put together from the report. One observation is formal jobs creation lags behind the continent's fast-growing labor force, leaving many African people reliant on informal sector, which has highly volatile wages, lack of securities, and you name it. So since 2018, Africa's population has been growing by an average of about 33 million people each year. Labor force by about 14 million, yet only 2.6 to 3 million formal jobs are created each year. This shows a huge deficit. So according to the International Labour Organization, ILO, in 2024, unemployment in Africa was about 6.7%, only slightly above the global average of 5%. And this is because the ILO employment definition include both formal and informal employment. So of the 93.3% employment rate in Africa in 2024, an estimated 85% was informal employment, low productivity, income volatility, which characterize it. So if I analyze from the ILO's definition, the problem that Africa has is not unemployment, but the type of jobs that are there. So the continent faces a huge deficit in terms of decent job creation. If in our EES model, we have 6 sectors, which is agriculture, manufacturing, energy, materials which include mining, then we've got ITC, then services. And from our analysis, the combined scenario, which include all those 8 sectoral scenarios that I spoke about, by 2043, which is the end of the 10-year implementation plan of AU Agenda 2063, agricultural sector will remain the largest employer across Africa, followed by service sector and manufacturing sector. So within our 8 sectoral scenarios, which sector has the most impact in creating more labor employment? We found that it was the manufacturing sector, and I believe because of its engages, followed by governance and education. So here I'm showing you a chart for total population, working age population, which is from 15 to 64. In the current path, 2023, which is in orange, then light green, the current path, or what we call business as usual. Then we have our combined scenario impact on these three. So as you can see, in 2023, the population was around 1.5 million. Then we forecast in the current path that by 2043, the population will increase to about 2.3 million. And with the implementation of the combined scenario, we forecast that the population will decline to 2.2 million, which is less than the current path. This is mainly due to probably the use of contraceptives, reduction in mortality, more economic activities. Then here, this is the working age population. We also see an increase in working age population from the current from 2023, this is historical data. Then our focus, it will increase to about 1.4. Then in our combined scenario, it will slightly increase to 1.4, 12,000. So here I'm showing you the labor force. So the labor force in the current path, 2023, it was about 576. And by 2043, in the current path, it will increase to about 1,200,000. And with the implementation of the combined scenario, it will slightly increase above the current path. So here I'm showing you working poverty among African countries, those that are employed, but they are living below the $2.15 at 2017 price. So as you can see here, we have got Madagascar, people who are working but living below the $2.15, they are about 77.5%. And if you look carefully, you could see that the trend shows that the working poverty is mostly higher in low-income countries as compared to upper-income countries, if you check the trend here. So extreme poverty, the green one, which is $2.15, moderate poverty, which is $3.55, and not extreme poverty or moderate, which is above $3.65, those who are living above $3.65. As I mentioned before, you can see now, if we classify the 54 African country or 55 African country into their income groups, you see that the informal employment, which I believe that's the challenge that we have, using the definition of employment, since unemployment is just 6.5%. The problem that is causing working poverty is the informal sector. So here I have 2023. You see that in low-income country, informal sector labor contributed 66% of the total labor. And in 2043, within the current path of business as usual, we forecast that it will decline slightly to 56%. And in our combined scenario, if we tick all the boxes, then the informal sector would slightly also decline to 43. Same applies to low middle income and upper middle income. We didn't show high income countries since we have got only one high income country, which is Seychelles. And here I'm showing you the contribution of the informal sector to GDP in low income countries and up to upper middle income countries. As you can see, the contribution in all these income groups is declining from 2023 to 2043 in the current path, and to our combined scenario. This shows that as the economy grows, labor earnings increases, and also drive employment transformation, which is a shift from the share of informal labor to formal labor. If I move here, so this is the labor employment by sector. As I mentioned, these are the sectors that we have within our East model: ITC in blue, energy, materials, manufacturing, service, and agriculture. So here we have the current path, which is our historical data. You can see the contribution of this is called the agricultural sector in 2023, and the current path in 2043 is slightly declined. And in our combined scenarios, 48%. And we see that also this blue one is services, despite the fact that service is large as a contribution of GDP, in terms of employment is slightly below the agricultural sector. And we forecast that its contribution will also slightly decrease as the share of the manufacturing sector increases, as you can see, from 14% to 16% in the current path. And in our combined scenario, assuming that we tick all the boxes from education, agriculture, trade, up to financial flow, it will slightly increase by 0.04%. And if, so this just shows the number of people that will be employed in each and every sector. You can see the agriculture here, 275 million, and in the current path, it will almost double to 456 million. And in our combined scenario, it will also increase. Same applies to the service in blue and the manufacturing and materials, which include mining. So among the 8 sectoral scenarios that we have in our team, here I'm showing you the impact that they have on labor employment. So here, this is the combined scenario, which shows that relative to the current path, that 39.2 million jobs, more jobs will be created relative to the current path. And most of these jobs, they will be coming from manufacturing, demographics, governance, education, after. And at the bottom, it's agriculture scenario. So here are some of our few recommendations. I won't mention them in details, but one of which is like we recommend investment, aggressive investment in manufacturing, improvement in education and skill. The sector should be aligned towards today and tomorrow's labor demands, market demands. We should boost our digital infrastructure and system. We should address the issue of quality of employment, close the gender gap, support formalization of informal sector, and some of these. I'll end my short presentation here. I hope I did not exhaust more than 15 minutes. Thank you, Pamela. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Blessing. Thank you. I think you helped us, understand what are some of the current realities and the future trajectory and how this combined gives us the scenario that we can work with. There's a lot of questions and activity happening in the chat, which I'm really pleased to see. And thank you to Dr. Yakis Elias for addressing some of those. The comments of formalizing the agricultural supply chain that might lift us off poverty. So I think we want to quickly speed through the panelists today with their questions, and then we will keep some time for the Q&A that's being very active on the chat. In the meantime, Blessing, there are some questions that are addressed to you, but we will come back to you on that. We are honored now to have the presence of Mr. Alexio Mosindo, who's the director of the country office at the International Labour Organization, ILO, and he oversees the Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, and South Africa, leading on the decent work team for Eastern and Southern Africa. Mr. Alexio has over 25 years of experience at the international development across the African continent, and you may access all the chats, the bios of our speakers today on the chat. Mr. Alexio, as we turn to you today, thank you again for joining us. If you can maybe address some of the most pressing employment challenges in Southern Africa, as well as how is ILO's decent work agenda evolving. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pamela. And let me start by thanking Blessing for the quite detailed presentations and the numbers and the challenge that we do face. I think adding to your question on what are the challenges, maybe I can add a few more questions that we need to discuss for the continent. I think said 14 million enter the labor market, 2.6 million formal jobs are created. So basically, where will the jobs come from? I think that is the question that we need to address. You have identified some of the sectors, but we need to dig deeper into where exactly will those jobs come from. I think that is our first challenge within Southern Africa or Africa, to identify where the jobs come from. Second challenge I can then put in is we are all attracting domestic and foreign investments. How do we turn these investments into real job creation opportunities? And for that, I can say the ILO has been working within SADC on what we call employment impact assessments, just trying to see that for every $100 we invest in terms of FDI or domestic resources, how many jobs are created? And how can we use that methodology to then see where to invest our resources? That also links with the push from ILO in terms of the challenge on how do our national budgets, where the greater money is and where the government spends money, lead to job creation. And for that, we call for pro-employment macroeconomic budgeting. I think we've had some experience over the years on how we brought in through gender budgeting in a number of issues that did affect women were highlighted in that process. How can we then focus as a challenge to the ministries of finance to ensure that when national budgets are being addressed, employment is at the center of the budget, where the money is coming from. Third challenge I would put again in terms of the question is we have a challenge in Africa where we have people without jobs and jobs without people. And at times, these jobs are just in the neighborhood, where you find country A does not have a job, but there is an excess skill in country B. Somehow, we do have a feeling that if we get somebody outside the continent, they are better qualified than somebody within the continent. That's one part. So let me address that in two parts. So first, people without jobs and jobs without people is what our institutions of higher learning are sending out as workers, is not what the labor market is looking for. How do we reduce the skills mismatch as a challenge? And I think from the ILO, the core there is what we call social dialogue, bringing in the key actors of the labor markets, government, workers, and employers, and in this case with learning institutions, to be on the table and say, what are the jobs that country A, Botswana, Zimbabwe, South Africa is going to need in the next year, in the next 5 years, in the next 15 years? How do we start training people for that? Then second is the whole discussion around labor migration related to that. Some of our countries are rather small. And if we do not address the issue of regional integration, the issue of migration, the issue of using skills from within the region, it's a bigger challenge that we face as a bloc. I think there was a lot of talk from Blessing on the informal economy. It's a fifth challenge that I'll put within the SADC region. And he linked it very well in his presentation with the issue of working conditions, that we have a number of people are in the working poor. How do we address the conditions of work? Not just looking at the quantity of jobs to be created, but also to the quality of jobs. This is where from the ILO International Labour Standards come into play, and calling upon countries to ratify and have the labor laws that protect both the investor as well as the workers themselves. So a core focus on working conditions and quality of jobs is important for the continent. In the interest of time, I think I would also add just one point: technology, digitalization, and the creative economy. I think these are sectors that we need to pay more attention to. The creative economy, for example, has been, in a number of our countries, a source of employment that at times we do not fully recognize, and at times we take it to be in the informal economy, where social protection tends to be a challenge within it. So as we discuss within the hour and into the future, I would also like that focus on the creative economy and technology that comes into play. And last point for this first round of discussion, Pamela, so that I can give others a chance and the audience. We need to address gender-related gaps in the labor market. We can do a lot, but if we do not address the issue of equality and gender gaps, the gender pay gap, for example, is something that is important, again, to address work quality. Let me stop here, and then I can come back as and when necessary. Thanks, Pamela.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alexio. Thank you very much for those insightful comments. And I just want to encourage the audience, if you can please continue posting your chat, your questions in the chat group. Now I would like to move quickly to my dear colleague, Mr. Abdel Nasser, who is the Senior Program Officer at the African Union Development Agency, leading on the MSME program at NEPAD. He has over 15 years of experience in supporting SMEs. My apologies. And his experience in developing programs for startups as well, and combined with strategic roles in various organizations across Africa and France. Nazar, if you may address some of the biggest barriers that small medium enterprises face in creating sustainable employment, as well as how is NEPAD supporting the MSMEs to adapt to digital transformation. Over to you, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much, Pamela and colleagues from ISIS, and congratulations for this report. MSMEs, African MSMEs are central to job creation, but they are navigating in an environment that is hindering their growth. So the barriers that they are facing are multiple. Amongst them, we have access to finance, and this one I'm starting with this one because it is mostly coming from the feedback that we receive from our MSMEs that we are working with. So I think this is I can say that this is because of most of our enterprises in the continent are micro, more than 80% within the 100 million MSMEs that exist in the continent and operating in the continent. So most of them are micro, and as someone said in the comments, so it's difficult for investors, for bank, and for financiers to support those entrepreneurs financially because of the risks that they present. So the lack of collateral, weak credit story, limited guarantee schemes restricts like this ability to scale and create jobs. The second one that I can speak about is infrastructure and regulatory bottlenecks. So we have in most of our countries, the energy remain, for example, unreliable. You can like this is a factor, one of the factor that is hindering also productivity and progress of the MSMEs. We have the logistics challenges, complex business registration procedures, complex tax procedure that slow down the growth of our enterprises. And I can also say that skills and productivities constitute a gap. Once again, informality, if I can call it like this, informality and low access to technical and managerial training, weak innovation capacity. So they undermine the job quality. And something else is the market access. So our MSMEs remain fragmented and excluded from value chains that could be regional or global. So there is a clear lack of connection and between the MSMEs that exist in the continent. Even they can build and they can create and they can contribute to a value chain in a sector. There is a lack of connection and they remain fragmented. Social protection is also something that is there, because rarely informal MSMEs provide contracts or benefit or stable condition to the employees. So it's limiting the sustainability of employment that they create. Just as AUD and APAC, so we are addressing these gaps with integrated approach with different programs. So I will maybe speak about the one that I am managing now and I'm leading now, which is the 100 million MSME initiative. So this program is addressing the MSMEs barrier with support in terms of capacity building or trainings. The second pillar is access to finance, that is by working with partners to build guarantee mechanism, to build collateral schemes to support those entrepreneurs, African entrepreneurs, and then access to market, create a link between the MSMEs across the continent and leverage on the upcoming AFC FTA. And back to the finance, MSME financing pillar, we are also working on linking, in addition to provide a guarantee mechanism or scheme, to build a scheme. We are also working on, currently now we are building an AI-driven platform called Akili AI. Right now we are improving, we are building the second version of it, and it is to support our African entrepreneurs by tailored advisory service that could be information on training on specific needs, and the second one is to link them with potential financier. So they can. It's a matchmaking. To put it simply, it's a matchmaking between entrepreneurs and banks and investors. And the third pillar is what, as I said, linking the MSMEs to support MSMEs to the new market, give them or provide them with tailored advisory service to expand their business or export, leveraging on the existing regulations and rules. And we are also discussing, one of our strengths is that also we speak to the government, and we are conducting also what we call it technical support to member states to enable the environment by supporting them to develop and implement MSMEs and startup acts. This is I think we consider it as a support to the mechanism that we are providing. So this is our holistic approach that we are providing to the African MSME. So Pamela, because of interest of time, I will just pause here, and I would be happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Nazar. I think because of time as well, there's a lot that you're doing. I think, we also opened for our discussion post this webinar, if anybody wants to know what the African Union is doing in support of both skilling and supporting with finances to the young entrepreneurs. We quickly want to turn on to, and thank you so much to the audience who are keeping the questions. I encourage the speakers to just look at them quickly. We will have time to I won't read the questions. You will just have time to address them as we go along at the end. I hand over now to Dr. Grace Gondwe, who is a development economist with more than 10 years of experience in trade, social, and economic policy analysis. Grace is also working at the ILO as a technical officer on employment and labor markets. And Grace, with your wealth of experience in supporting governments across Africa, I hand the floor to you to address two main specific questions. What are some of the policy recommendations that ILO have for boosting employment, as well as what partnerships is ILO pursuing to address youth unemployment? Thank you very much, Grace. Over to you. Grace, if you may please unmute. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for the floor. I'll start by looking at a few things that Alexio had identified as the key challenges that Africa is facing as regards employment. One of the first things that he mentioned was, where are the jobs coming from? When we look at all the numbers that we have that have been put forward from this report and many other analyses that are out there, one of the key questions that governments have to address is, where are these jobs coming from? From the report also, we've seen that agriculture remains the key employer, but that differs from country to country. For some countries, really, the share has been declining. For some countries, it's still as significant. So one of the key recommendations that the ILO puts forward is for the countries to do a full analysis of their economies to identify which are the key sectors that are going to bring out the job-rich growth that we are all looking forward to. It's one thing for the economies to be registering growth rates of 5, 6, 7% when the majority of the people are still not able to find the jobs that are there. The second thing, we look at the economic integration, labor, trade, investments, and also labor migration. When we look at trade, for example, we have the AfCFTA currently in Africa, which accords the region a huge opportunity for the development of viable value chains. But what extent are those are the African governments utilizing the AfCFTA to generate jobs through trade? We also go beyond just the route of looking at agriculture and other value chains within the country to go across the borders. One other thing that Alexio had mentioned was that there is a possibility that we have observed in the region that there could be jobs in one country, but the skills are available in the other country. Do we have those synergies across Africa? To what extent are we leveraging the market that we have developed under the AfCFTA? The third thing is looking at the labor market policies, skilling and reskilling. So that times, one of the things also that we have observed so far is that when we look at the unemployment rates, you find that it's not really those that are uneducated that are jobless in Africa. The majority that are struggling to find jobs are people with degrees. I saw in one of the comments someone saying, isn't a degree giving you the chance to change to channel the skills that you have into something. It's not just that simple, I would say. So someone could have skills that you have done, for example, engineering or something in the university, but you go into the labor market, what you've done is not really in line with what the market actually needs. So we need to go beyond the academic qualifications to start thinking of what are the technical skills that the market really needs. This brings us to a situation where we need comprehensive labor market information system. With this, we are able to see exactly what the industries are looking for and what skills we have, what are the gaps in between the two, and what is it that needs to be exactly done to address the situation. Another thing is to look at the two speakers have also talked about SMEs, the last one. One of the key avenues for creating jobs in Africa is the private sector. And when we talk about the private sector, generally it's the SMEs because they're the ones that are accounting for over 80% of the private sector in the region. But when we look at them holistically, they're also the most affected with several things in terms of their productivity and growth. So if countries are to be able to identify what are the key issues for the SMEs and what is it that needs to be addressed to ensure that they're highly productive and are able to generate those jobs, then we are able to do all this. Lastly, we also focus on ensuring that our budgeting is pro-employment. And what do I mean by pro-employment? When we've done our employment policies, be it youth employment policies, the national employment policies, are we already thinking of where we're getting the resources from? What are the synergies between and across ministries? Are we leaving the issue of employment just to the Ministry of Labour, or we are taking that whole government approach where all the relevant sectors, including the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank, Ministry of Trade, come together and to say this is the direction that we want to take. For the first question, I would stop there. Now, what kind of partnerships is the ILO currently pursuing in Africa? We have at 3 levels. So the first one, we look at the international level where we have significant partnerships with, for example, the African Union. We've currently just released the Youth Employment Strategy for Africa. And we've also have a partnership with the Economic Commission of Africa, also looking at how to address employment in a holistic way in Africa. At the regional level, we have ties with the REX, for example, SADC. Alexio talked about the work that we are currently doing with SADC. In addition to the employment impact assessment, we are also supporting governments in the region to do the analysis for employment policy generation, and also to see how we can do at the regional level the guide so that all the countries in the region are able to follow specific things when we talk of employment policies. The third level is the country level. So the ILO works with constituents, and governments are one of the 3 constituents who work with. We work with government, social partners. On the social partners, we have both the employers and the workers. We work in the tripartite environment. So with that, we also, when working with government, we work mostly for their requests. So there are a lot of things that we've done, ranging from digitalization, covering a lot of topics. Digitalization, we've looked at employment policies, we've looked at gender-specific issues, we've looked at youth employment policies, and many other things that we've done at the country level. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Grace. Thank you. We're going to quickly move to the Q&A. There have been a lot of good questions asked, and also please be reminded to complete the poll that you see on the screens to help us improve these sessions going forward. But I want to go back to Blessing. Blessing, if you can just highlight some of the responses to the questions that are coming through the chat, please, in about 1 to 1.5 minutes. Thank you. I think the very first question is on the poverty data and how that correlates with the unemployment figures. Some of them have been addressed by Dr. Distelius. I think there was something on poverty reduction in terms of addressing the value chain, supply chains. If you can, over to you, Blessing, if you could just address some of the comments that are coming out from the chat.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. Concerning the relationship between unemployment and poverty, I think I've showed that chart. I don't know if I can share again. That shows the issue, the working poverty in Africa. So essentially, there is a positive correlation between unemployment and poverty in Africa and in other regions. Yes, that's what I can say, because in order to reduce poverty, you should be working, you should be earning something in order for you to be able to provide for your family. So the other question, it was about the role of digitalization and AI. So if we are talking about the role of digitalization in AI, in simple terms, we are talking about the role of new technology. So new technology, it promotes economic growth, which increase labor earning, drive employment transformation, which is the formalization of the informal sector to formal sector. Historical trends, they've shown that new technology has created more jobs than they have destroyed. I can give an example about China and the Asian miracle. The other question was about how strategic foresight help African government to anticipate or respond to the risk of jobless and premature industrialization. So I can say strategic foresight helps African government to shift from simply reacting to a crisis as it happens to actively prepare for the future. It allows policymakers to make advantage of upcoming opportunity and reduce risk of economic growth without jobs and premature industrialization. So in short, I can say strategic foresight is a key to building sustainable development and long-term sustainable growth. I don't know if there is other question that
thank you, Blessing. Thank you for that. Before I move on to Dr. Alexio to also, share his comments that's coming out of the chat, as well as his parting message. I've been reading a question about how is the African Union embracing the Agenda 2063 scenarios and how they're building scenarios regarding the foresight analysis, just to encourage the participants that the ISS as well as the African Union Development Agency have partnered. We're busy training member states in the various sectors on foresight and scenario building on the IFS model. We aligning them with the Agenda 2063, and I think Africa is really progressing in the terms of this global stage. We no longer are sitting in the back and watching. I think we're in the middle, in the center. Yesterday, I've joined a meeting with the AFCFTA, where they have a digital Pan-African payment system where our payments from, for example, Ghana to Kenya will now be facilitated directly in cases of, rather than going outside of the country to come in. So these creating intra-Africa trade also opens up the markets to jobs. But I will hand over to Mr. Alexio to give some of his comments, and then we'll move to Nazar and Grace to share some of the comments on the chat that are coming through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pamela, and good to know that everybody is welcoming this discussion. So maybe more of it moving forward. I think there was a question on the creative economy. Yes, there is an AU project that is there on the creative economy that you have worked with them is something that I will share on the chat for colleagues who want a link to it. Then I think there was also one from Paul in terms of the issue of engaging beyond the tripartite and in particular the academia. I think increasingly our policies on the continent are now being influenced by the knowledge gathered from the research institutes, and definitely that partnership comes to be strong. Moving forward, I would just say one of the things I can put is size matters. So regional integration plays a key role in order to have bigger markets, where in terms of value chains, that has also been a comment there. You can have some products being produced in Lesotho, some in South Africa, some in Zambia, and have that regional integration play its role. That's also linked to the ACFTA and regional value chains that come into play. I think the jobs will not come from anywhere outside. The jobs will come from the continent. So all of us here, the panelists, the audience, out and apart ILO, I think we need to sit and continue beyond this discussion and look at the data and answer that question. How can we create the jobs on the continent? Thank you, Pamela, and thanks to everyone for their comments.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Alexio. Grace, I'll hand over to you. Oh, sorry, I'm missing Nazar. Nazar, is there any comments that you would like to make from the comments that are coming out of the chat? I see a lot of comments that are very, very valuable. But if you want to add to what we are doing in this space, Nazar, especially the financing for entrepreneurs.
Yes, I think for the financing part of the entrepreneurs or the enterprises, I think I will maybe speak to one of the comments regarding the investors, that the comment was saying that investors are risk averse. It's true, but mostly what we notice and what we are trying also to build is investors are risk averse, but the problem is they don't. The problem is the lack of information that is coming from the entrepreneurs, from the startup. There is no real data to allow or to help them make the right decision to invest in the entrepreneurs, in the startup that are submitting their business plan and submitting a request. So with Akili, this is what we are trying also to build is, and we will build it, is to give this tool to our member state. Member state, I'm saying the government. We will build together and we'll build for them tools that they can use to make available right information that's needed by the investors and banks to make the right decision and invest more on those entrepreneurs. So this is one thing. The second thing is about the fact that we need to unlock Africa's demographic dividend. We must move from what I can say survivalist entrepreneurship to scalable and productive enterprises. Based on my experience, I used to see, and I think fortunately it's continued. So new, let me say, entrepreneurs or youth create businesses to survive, and not create a business that is to scale and develop, thrive, and create more job and create riches. So this is also something that we need we are working on it. So through support to our member state to implement policy on innovations like tailored finance, youth focused credit line, blended finance instrument, etc., guarantee mechanism, but also support in terms of innovation, of entrepreneurship, or cultural education, etc. So this is what I want to say, Pamela. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nizar. I think the Achilles one would really addresses that question on aligning the skill set to government, the public sector, to inform our member states of the high demand and the skill sets that are required. Grace, I turn over to you quickly in the last 1 minute, if you may, please, to address this reversed skill set that we're talking about, where we include the private sector and then understand what is actually required in the work, going almost sort of backward approach. If you could just share your thoughts on that, please.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Normally, what we have seen is that one of the key things contributing to this is the working in silos. The government is there, the education sector is there, and the TVETs are there. There is no mechanism where they're jointly doing things together. If we are able to address that, making sure that there is that platform, the ILO in some countries is helping to do that. But again, like I said before, we work based on the requests that have been given unto us. But if governments could come up with an approach that links really what the academia is doing in terms of the formal academic institutions, then the industries are also put together in that discussion, and the TVETs are also there, because you can also have someone who's been trained, they've been given the skills, but it's an evolving world and it's rapidly evolving. So time that you're finishing with your academic course, what mechanisms are there to help you to transition from the education to the industry, and which industries are we talking about? In brief output like that. Just looking at the chart, also someone had asked something about GDP and growth. Why are we still talking about GDP and growth and not inequality? That's encompassed in when we're talking about looking at job-rich growth. Because if we are to address fully poverty or reduce the numbers that we have, we look at it from both the growth and the distribution. The distribution comes with sustainable livelihoods and good jobs. If we are only looking at the livelihoods without looking at how sustainable those are and whether they're able to take people at least out of the minimum poverty levels, then even inequality will continue widening in the region. Briefly, in 1 minute, I would say that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Grace. Just very quickly, I would like maybe Blessing to answer the question on, is there a population dividend? There's a comment that apparently the DG of the World Bank has made that provides a reality check on youthful population. Would you like to comment on that and how this is changing the nature of challenges facing us across the continent, Blessing?
Well, thank you, Pamela. If you are talking about demographic dividend, we are essentially talking about the economic growth that is brought about by changing the population structure. If we compare the population structure of Africa and those developed countries, we would see that the population structure of Africa it's too more dependent to working age population. We haven't achieved the demographic dividend. In our study, we refer to the demographic dividend as when an economy reaches a working population to dependent ratio of 1.7 to 1 dependent. So in terms of the population structure, in terms of demographic dividend, the continent is too far from achieving that economic growth that is brought about by changing population structure. Yes, the median population for Africa is young, but to maximize on that economic on that demographic dividend, there is need for opportunities as well. Otherwise, it will lead to an economic bust, because we have a matured population, but there are no opportunities. Like I have showed in the presentation, that the formal sector where more people want to be more youth want to work in, there is limited opportunity, or I should say that there is mismatch, according to Alex.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Blessing. And a very big thank you to the panelists and for the participants for this very rich and insightful discussion. There are questions that are really interesting on, bridging this gap between academia and the work that is, available. I think that is an important discussion that we will take forward together on this platform. And as we commit to collaborative action, I think is very important on this evidence-informed policy making. I would like to encourage all of you to join us in the next session that we have on the 17th of September at the same time from 11 to 12 on the topic on manufacturing Africa's future. This seminar was really made possible with the thanks from the support from the government of Sweden, as well as the Hans Sneeden Foundation. The ISS is also grateful, as well as the African Union Development Agency, for the ISS Partnerships Forum platform, which includes the Hans Sneeden Foundation, the European Union, the Open Society Foundations, and the governments of Denmark, Ireland, Netherlands, Norway, as well as Sweden. With that, I once again thank all of you for joining us. It was a very important topic. Time doesn't permit to cover everything in this 1 hour, but we commit to keeping these discussions alive and to addressing these in our future series. Thank you again, and have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you, Pamela. Bye.